Hi, Garrett. How are you doing?
Great being back from WJAX and JFall yesterday. So I'm fully pumped.
Okay. I understood. Fully punched.
Oh no, luckily not.
You asked me, what's the plan? And if you know my podcast, there's, of course, no plan because everything starts with the first question, the most important one. What was your first computer?
It was a Texas Instruments a TI 994A, and I still have it.
You have it here.
If you give me a second, I can get it. It's just around the corner.
Okay, so you are my second guest who actually has the first computer. So it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, amazing. What you did, or why you got it, or you wanted to have it? How it happened?
It happened when I let me think about it. I'm not sure when I saw the first computer, but I think it was when it came up in school, 1981 something.
Okay.
And I saw the Apple IIe. We had it in school. We had 3 of them, and I saw that. And a friend of mine, the father was a doctor, and he had an Apple IIe, and he had also this Texas Instruments. And then he just said, "Oh, this is our old computer." And I asked, "Oh, old computer? So maybe your dad want to sell it?" So he sold it to me, and
how expensive was it? Remember?
It was at that time, at that time it was around 260 German marks, which is maybe
still a lot of money.
Yeah, it took me some time to convince my parents that I need this computer.
Okay.
Yeah, that was how it started, and then it's interesting. I kept it because they have so much memory, good memories about that time. So it's just good to see it there, sitting there.
So what you did with it? Because I mean, if you saw the Apple, right? So there's always something going on in your head. So I would like to play with it, or I would like Star Trek, Star Wars, or whatever, right? So and in your case, maybe more Star Wars than Star Trek, I would assume. But why you wanted to have it?
So first of all, I was fascinated by the technology, and of course, it was games. Right at that time, we had these arcade machines everywhere, and that I was fascinated by the games. And there have been 3 games with this computer, and it was these cartridges that you have to plug in. So I got the computer. I was playing for maybe a couple of weeks until I managed to master all the games, and then it was very boring because you couldn't buy games here. You have to import them from the US, and I was 13 maybe or 12, so it was not possible for me. So I started to, okay, what can I do? And I typed in, "Hello, my name is Garrett." Enter. Syntax error. Okay. Again, next try. How are you doing? Syntax error. Okay, gaming. So I went back to gaming, and then it maybe took a week, and then I thought, oh, there was this manual. Oh, let me take a look at it. And so I started figuring out that you can tell the machine what to do, and it will do it if you do it in the right way. And I was totally fascinated by this, and that still drives me. I love coding, talking to machines. It doesn't have to be Java in general, but I love Java. But it's still the ability to talk to a machine and tell the machine what to do. This is really, it's fascinating to me.
So I tell you my story. I told you already on the podcast, but maybe interesting to you. So my first was ZX Spectrum, a similar story, and I wanted to code it because I liked the machine and I wanted to use the keyboard a little bit more, but I had no idea because I wanted the joysticks. Like, this is nice, but this is actually a machine I can do something useful with. And then I found the manual. So I knew, and I really liked the manual because it was beautiful. The problem was it was in French. I have no idea about French. So, and I found the code, right? And the first example, as I remember, this was basic, started with REM. You know what REM is?
Yeah, sure.
What is it?
It's a comment.
The comment. Yeah. So I wrote exactly what you wrote. So REM, and then, I don't know, I am Adam or Master of the Universe or whatever. And it always worked. And I said, this is great, whatever I'm doing, it is always working. But and then I assumed that the games are programmed this way, that there's like, you write a page with the REMs, all the characters, and then they get somehow replaced behind the scenes. So,
Yes.
and for me, I couldn't understand it. There's a lot of work, to program a game. I had no idea this is like a movie or whatever. And then, and then I don't know how, I learned a bit, but it took far more time than in your case. I think I don't know. After 1 year, I was able to understand a for loop or whatever. But this was actually I wanted to do something useful with computers, but I had no idea what to do. Right, so
But it was very similar to me. So
okay.
I was looking at the computer stores, and I saw the Apples and IBMs at that time, and I was like, wow, they have this beautiful graphical interface, especially the Macs. So I tried to program that stuff. That was on the second PC. That was a Z80 based thing, like the ZX Spectrum. It was a Sharp. So I
Oh,
never
okay.
had this famous computers. I always had computers nobody else had.
Yeah.
So the Sharp MZ822, and before that I had the 731 with the integrated plotter. I still have that one, so so I kept the old stuff. And with this one, I had to code in assembler. So that was hex code assembler even,
Wow.
because it came without basics. So it came just with a hex monitor. That was the whole thing. So
Back to the TI. Back to the TI.
Yeah.
Was it a calculator or a proper machine? So it looked like C64 or more like
No,
calculator?
it was a TMS. I can't remember the number of the CPU, but it's a 16-bit CPU. It was a computer, so it's really
Okay.
like a personal computer, but the very early ones. So it's nice. These
Okay.
days you would say it's more calculator, but at that time it was. I think it had 16K RAM.
No, I'm asking because many programmers started with the Texas Instrument, but it was a calculator.
Yeah, right.
And you could also program the calculators.
Yeah,
So
that's-
there are two. Okay, but you had a proper computer.
Yeah, it's a computer like a keyboard-sized computer. So it has a
Okay.
keyboard on it and the slots, and then you have on the back you can put in a what is it, F-bus signal from a TV set. Yeah, so it was a proper computer, but yeah, computers of that time.
So, and what you achieved? So, what you did with it? So, after understanding, what was your first program or whatever? So, so
The first programs I did with this one was more or less learning how to talk to the machine. So it was not really useful stuff. It was more like, okay, what can I do here? Or as you said, figuring out that you can do stuff in loops, right? You don't have to write everything again. It's really learning how the machine works by doing, by just coding, right? So you figure out, that's how it works. Which is a totally different approach that we have these days, right? So these days, kids grow up with mobile phones, and these are supercomputers at that time. But it was a different approach because it was more related to how the hardware worked. So you have to understand how the machine works to get the programs working. So I was really fascinated. I mean, I studied physics, and with the focus on microsystem technology, because of that, I would like to know how things work. How these computers work internally, help me again better understanding coding, because it's so related to each other. But these days I miss that a little bit. It was different in the old days.
I would say the big difference between now and then is maybe that back then there was lots of science fiction movies, right? Bad ones, but they were. And you saw the computer and say, "Wow, this is something like almost like AI, right?" Back now a little
true.
bit. So, and if you and no one knew actually what computer can do. So if you saw a computer, I always suspected it is a part of science fiction. And then you started to work with, and this is how it happened. And now the computers or smartphones, whatever, are more like multimedia devices. And the problem is, right? They are already. It is hard to top it because if you do nothing, you have the maximum output. There's this 4K output, looks beautiful, and everything is exciting. And if you start to work with it, right? Everything gets worse because you have to work, 2 days, and at the end you see maybe black and white in wrong font, hello world. So it is exact, the opposite. At our time, you were actually motivated to do something because it could only get better, and right now it only can get worse. And at the end, maybe you achieve 30% of this what you already have.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So it was really like every step you took was a step forward. So it was always getting better, as you said. It's really, maybe this is the difference. And I totally agree to that. And I miss these days. And I also go sometimes to the school, help children in the IT courses. And it's bad to see that even the teachers don't have this. For me, it's very emotional. Computers, I'm attached to this whole technology because I have this good memories, but the teachers these days, not all of them have that, and they can't transport this feeling. So I have the impression the lack of people in IT is probably because we don't know how to spark the interest in the kids. To make it to them available and say, look, you can do this tiny things, and then you can lit up this LED or whatever. You can do stuff, right? And I think this might be a problem these days, and we didn't have the problem. We have been lucky if we have a computer, and then you can do, as you said, you just do something, and wow, it works. You did a step forward, and then you can continue from that.
So at the beginning, my motivation was, the Star Wars is nothing. If you have a computer, you are in your own world, so you are actually. You are the thing, right? And this motivated me. Also, nothing happened actually, but for me it was a very special thing. And usually, with everything I got bored, but computer was the only thing which was limitless. So you could actually, and even now, right? So the reason why I'm still doing Java, because I still learn things. I mean, this is if I would learn different programming language in parallel, I would be overwhelmed. I only would like to sleep. So this is the great thing. So you can learn the entire time as long as you're learning. It's not boring, right?
Exactly, totally agree. And this is also one of the reasons why I stick to Java. Is once you are in this area and it's evolving over so many years and still can keep up with all the other new stuff that's coming. But that's really fascinating. So in the beginning it was like, oh, we don't have lambdas, only Groovy can do that. Suddenly we got that with JDK8 and it was like, wow, right? So now you can do the same things that you could do before, only with specific languages. So Java keeps up all the time. And as you said, you have to learn and learn. And if you enjoy learning, then it's great. I really love it.
By the way, this is just a side note. After WJAX, someone came to me again and said, what's my opinion about Kotlin? As always, right? So I said, okay, Kotlin is nice, but with Java 21, I'm just happy and I'm hyper productive, and I cannot imagine that if Kotlin gets better. Maybe I would be 10% better, but in order to be really better, you have to be 50% better to convince my clients. So and then we had the discussion about the programming language, and after every whatever feature, I found something in Java, and at the end, the attendee told me, but no, I really like Kotlin because of the collections, because they are different and nicer. And my answer was, okay, I mean, the collections, right, and streams is the least problem I have with. So and if I perform their code reviews, I still fighting with developers who just do a list for each and then huge lambda and transform to. So I would say if we would just use what Java has right now to 80%, I would say we could speed up everything by 50%. So there is no need, And then if you are that good, you write that simple code. It's not good. It's just believing what Java has and use it. Then maybe you can switch to a different language. But this is like you have race car, and now you are talking about Formula One. So and this is the difference, right? But not like you have what was it, Trabant, right? Trabi, and then you say, okay, I don't use anything, and then switch to something different because so just drive to Trabant, right? At the speed, and then think about Porsche. So,
but you know what? That comes back to the stuff where how we grow up with computers, because you have to squeeze out everything out of this stuff that you have, and you just use it in the right way, and suddenly you look back at the C64 from Commodore. I never had one, but these games that they have been able to program, it was amazing.
Yes.
If you see, it was 64K, right? So it's really amazing what you can do if you really squeeze out, if you know how to use what you have. And these days, people are just so used to, oh, look, there's this new language. It can do this thing way better. Well, maybe you take a look at what you have and learn how to use it correctly. And then you will see, it's quite good already. So you don't have to change, right?
Yeah. By the way, I also played a lot, even during my study. But then I found out that actually all the games are somehow similar because, there's one, the 3D engine. And this is more or less like movie. And then it became suddenly so boring. I never played again. And I'm somehow interested in games, but I like to watch for 5 minutes, and then I completely lose my interest just because of the fact. And
that's really fascinating. I'm the same. I stopped playing games after my study. Never played again. I never.
Not like this decision, but suddenly bored. I say, look, this game, there was this game, and there's no different characters, but it's the same. Okay, this is and now I like someone who plays, at conference, whatever. I stop by and watch, become interested, know how the graphics are working, whatever. It's like it's nice, but this is like talking about 1K movie and 4K movie or 3D television. I could also look at this for 5 minutes and then go away, right? So back to you. So what was the most serious or complicated program you wrote on the machine?
Oh, on that machine, it wasn't very complex. This was mainly, like I said, that was more learning. I did that only for, let me think about it. Maybe it was a year or 1.5, and then I got the new computer.
Why?
Because I saw that the Z80 can do way more things than the Texas Instruments, and it wasn't that much more expensive. So that was an interesting story.
Okay.
Because my parents went to vacation. I have 2 sisters, and because we had a small car, only 2 of us kids could join the vacation. So one had to stay home.
Was it a Porsche? Was it a Porsche car?
No. I think I can't. It was a Ford, very small.
Okay.
So then they 1 year before, I and my younger sister and me, we joined our parents, and then the next year I had to stay home. So my parents gave me some money and said, "This is for 3 weeks. Enjoy." So I was maybe 14 and staying at home for 3 weeks alone these days, I couldn't imagine. But yeah, my parents did that. So I stayed at home, and then I didn't bought anything from that money. I just kept the whole money because I would like to save it for the next computer. When my parents came back from vacation, I ate everything that we have in the house. Just don't use the money, right?
Yeah.
And then they came back, and I said, "Look, I just saved all the money." And my mother said, "Why? I would like to buy a new computer." And then I said, "Okay, because you have been so brave saving all the money, we will give you the rest." So I got my sharp computer.
You're starved. So it means right now, that your experience, if you would be right in Alcatraz jail for a month, you would be happy, right? So you would came out and say, "Okay, I would like just to have a new Mac," right?
I was really keen on getting a new computer. So whatever it takes, and I knew I don't have the money, so that was the chance to get a new one. And once I got that one,
what did you do the 3 weeks? You coached the entire time, or?
Oh, it was, to be honest, friends came with their computers, and we hooked them up, tried to do networking with the Texas Instruments, and it was a C16, I think was the model from Commodore, and we tried to do serial connection and try to communicate. Wow. It was quite interesting.
And worked somehow?
We could send characters.
But this is incredible. So it means your friends were also coders, more or less, right?
Yeah. I had it was this time where we had these home computers and we just met, and we have all been fascinated by what you can do. You remember the days where you have the magazines where you can type, just have to type all the program code, and then hopefully it works if you don't have any typo in it. So we did that to make things work, and we attached cassette players, and we have to solder stuff. I had to solder stuff on my Texas Instruments because the serial port was not capable of handling the cassette player. So I had to really solder a wire and all these things, make it work. But that was just, it was different times.
Yeah, cool. So you got the next one. What happened then?
Oh, that was different because it didn't came with BASIC or something. It just came with this hex editor, right? You switch it on, you have a hex editor. That's it.
Oh.
So I stumbled upon that. I was like, okay, so you can load BASIC, you can load Pascal, whatever, with a cassette player. But I was fascinated by that I can see because it was a live hex monitor. So that means you can scroll to the memory and suddenly you see stuff that's always changing. I was like, oh, what's going on? Why is this changing? Okay. So I was reading in a book. I still also have the book, the Z80 book. It's like that
okay.
Book. And I was reading through the commands. I saw the hex codes and I was like, oh, this is something like an interrupt. Oh, what's that? So I was this is cool. So I figured out if you can write some code here in that area of the memory, and then you just move the interrupt to this address, and in the end you go back to the original one, then you can add stuff to the running loop, right? So to your operating system. And that's how I figured out how to code graphic stuff in these days directly in hex code. It took a long time to get simple things working, but I think the thing I was most proud of was I programmed a menu bar where you can use the cursor keys to move a mouse pointer, right? Okay. There was no mouse, so I just used the cursor keys, and then you can click a button, it will drop down a menu, and then you can select stuff. So that was everything I managed to do in
But it's a huge achievement in assembler.
Yeah, it was a lot of code, and it took a long time. But if you have this plan in your head, right, then
Yeah.
time doesn't matter. So you just every day, and you have to save it on the cassette player. Make sure you find it back when
Yeah.
you have to reload and all that. But it was absolutely fascinating. So I'm still. This is the stuff that drives me because I know you can make things happen.
Yeah.
It's up to you, right? If you're really thrilled to do something, then you can do it. If you
Yeah.
just have to learn it, right? You have to learn it first, but then everything's possible.
Exactly. So what I was even capable, to find out which program it is according to the sound of the cassette.
Oh no! Oh, wow. Yeah.
At
Everybody-
least yeah. How far I have to scroll, back and forth, because I have multiple programs on one cassette.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it was
sure.
not that easy to find it.
Yeah, that was good times.
So this is like a start. This was the beginnings of reactive programming. Something.
There you go.
Yeah, there was a live memory, and you could hook to the memory, and it called you back. So this is actually right reactive programming. So this is how it happened. Yeah, this is actually amazing. And then you stick with assembler, or you loaded other
No,
languages?
then I started doing Pascal and also a little bit of Basic. And then at one point, I jumped on that whole x86 train and got my first PC. It was a 286, I think. And then I got the 386, the 486, the Pentium, and everything that came after that, which until I think it was shortly before 2000. And then I switched to Mac. And I always wanted to have a Mac, but they are so expensive. So I was like, oh, there's no chance. And then I got a chance to get one. And once I got a Mac, I never looked back. So I'm still on Mac, and I love it. It's for me, it's really the platform is nice. Yeah, but it got more complex. So I moved away from assembler when we got this multi-cores and all these things. It got so complex to do this kind of things. Even today, it's to me totally impossible. If I take a look at assembler code, it's so complex with these machines and the capabilities that I like Java.
Okay.
It's good abstraction. So
But okay, so you wrote the not progress bar, the menu bar, right? On in Hex on the machine. What was your next project? So I'm just interested in your progression. Which software you wrote until later. So what?
I've started writing some games.
Okay.
So that was in different languages. I think mainly in Pascal at that times. But this is all. That was not really graphical. That was cursor graphics, right? So ASCII graphics stuff at that time. And simple things like really not. It was more getting the concepts behind gaming, which is it's quite complex. If you just play a game, you won't even realize what it takes to make that work. Even the simplest games is not that simple. So, and I was fascinated by when you do that, you suddenly understand what hurdles they have to take to make it work, and that's really interesting and fascinating. Then I think I stopped coding for some time because I also had a Commodore Amiga in between, and that was you copy the stuff from everywhere. It was all about gaming, right? That was my gaming times.
But Amiga was amazing, I have to say.
Yeah, it was.
Amiga
The
500
graphics
at least it was.
It was incredible what you can do with these machines, right? It looked from if you came from the C64 or if you saw that and know it, and then you saw the Amiga, it was like wow. The sound was amazing. The graphics have been amazing. The games and everything. It was really evolving a lot.
But Atari ST was similar, right? There was Amiga 500 and was similar Atari ST, and just look at this. I never had them, but they were from the capability. Seems to be that they were very similar, right?
Yeah, very similar. I think the Atari ST. I would love to have one of those, but I couldn't get one. It was also too expensive for me, so I got a used Amiga 500, and that was okay. And when I stepped from that one to the 286, I got a Hercules graphics.
Oh.
It was monochrome only. So I went back to coding because there was no gaming, right?
Yeah.
So then I started coding on the x86. I started a little bit with assembler, but then I moved to other languages, mainly Pascal at that time, a little bit C. And then I stopped coding for a long time. I just used the computer all the time because I got everything. If I had a problem, I know someone, you have the program that solves my problem. I use the programs. And then I started coding again during my studies. That was, I studied physics, but
How you
I
picked
worked.
why you wanted to study physics and not computer science, for instance?
Oh yeah, that's a longer story because I was really bad in school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a total loser. So I repeated 2 classes. I had to change school because I was not interested in listening to the teachers.
You are a rebel.
And then at one point I realized, oh, it's all so easy. You just have to do your homework, and then it's like that, right? So
So there's note, to all listeners, you only have to do the homework, right?
yeah, it was really.
Your
that
parents
was
never
really
told
the
you
key.
this? You never told you this? The
They
homework is
told
more
me, but
important?
I won't listen. I had
Okay.
to experience it myself.
Okay.
So and then it took a long time for me to find the right place. I always would love to work with computers, but I tried 47 times to get a job, and they always told me you're not good enough in school. So and I was like, shit, this is really, it's my fault, right?
Yeah.
So and then I studied physics because I would like to know how things work. That was the main intention. It was not really, I would like to become a scientist or something. I would like to know how things work in general. So, and that's physics. So I studied physics, and once I finished that,
You enjoyed that, or you said it was a bad decision?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It was the best thing ever. And then I worked for 10 years in the semiconductor area and nanotechnology research. And the technology was fascinating. And it was always with computers. And then over that time, I moved from engineering into software development, and then became the leader of the software development department. And that was the time when I started coding again, because once I was the leader of that team, I stopped coding. I was like, oh, this is terrible. So I came home, asked my wife, so how was your day? And she told me, oh yeah, I did this and this, I created that. And I was like, what did I create today? And so I started coding again. And I went to the office at 5 a.m. just to have 3 hours before the official work starts to code stuff. And then I created libraries. I was fascinated in graphics because I suck totally in drawing stuff with my hand, but I'm really good in doing technical drawings. We had that during my studies. I had to do that, and I really enjoyed that a lot. And for me, computer graphics is drawing by numbers, and I can do that absolutely.
So what do you mean? So you can write coordinates like in CSS, and you know what you're writing, or
It's like if you have a gradient, this is just it's a color that changes values. It's numbers that change over a period of time or the length, right? So this is what I mean. So you draw, if you have a vector graphics, it's all about coordinates, and you get the result is the graphics, but the code this is something I can do. So I figured out that this is really something I like. So I watched Apollo 13, the movie, and I'm fascinated by space stuff, whatever it is. So I watched the movie, and there is the board, the computer of the module, the lunar module. So I saw that, and I took a screenshot, and I was like, okay, can I do that in Java? That was the question.
what Java? How? Okay.
Yeah, that was already in Java.
So in the nanotechnology company, you started with Java already?
Yes, because the reason was I had a Mac at home and a Windows machine at work, and I hated the fact that we have different code bases. So
Okay, which Java was it?
that was Java 1.4 at that time.
So late. I thought you were one of the
No, I wasn't one of the early adopters. So I was really people told me about it, and I was like, yeah, but I don't really need it. I didn't saw the reason why should I. I used C at that time, so why should I use that, right? I didn't. But then when I saw, it's cross-platform, and then I figured that out, that I write code on my Mac, I take it to the office and run it on the Windows machine, and it works. That was for me magic. I was like, wow, this is the key. This is how it should be, right? I have a virtual machine. I can run the code wherever I like. And then
you like that?
I really like that.
Because I started with Java from the beginning, but before I used C and C++. And then everyone, and then was Oak. This was Java was almost out, and I don't know. I was able to. It was JDK 1.102b. I remember. So and before that it was the Oak, and they told me this is platform neutral. It's like it's great. It runs everywhere. And then if I saw how it works, I was disappointed. I mean, this is a fake. You have to install the software first,
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and
okay.
then the bytecode runs inside. This is no difference than if I install Word on different, on different operating systems.
Yes.
I can open the doc file. I was so disappointed. It's like, what is a huge fake, the entire thing. But I was only motivated because someone told me, Java is the true object-oriented programming language and C++ is not.
Okay.
And I say, okay, then I learned the true thing, why I should spend time with C++, right? and this was actually why I used Java. But for the Java, I think the first 2 years, I still didn't like Java. I would like to have C++ because for me it was cleaner. It was, the headers were better separated in Java interfaces,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was more fun. There were operator overloading. I always tried to overload plus, for instance, for fun. And in Java it was not available, so I was like, it is a boring and and the applets were diverse. So, like you spend
Yeah.
what? Why I need there was a Duke I remember with Airhammer, Presslufthammer, the
Yeah,
Airhammer.
yeah.
And everyone wanted to have it. It's like, why the hell I need this in a browser? I couldn't
Yeah.
I couldn't understand what's the purpose of it because it was slow. It took forever. There was a gray rectangle, and everyone was excited, right? You remember the systems conference? Systems in Germany, systems conference in Munich. It was a traffic jam, and the entire conference was more or less Java in one point of time, and everyone was after applets.
Yeah, it was a hype.
It was crazy. So I would even say even more hype than now AI back then. with
I
applets.
remember that days. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember, and also I saw at the Cebit in Hanover. That
Yeah.
was the big.
Yeah.
They had the Sun, the coffee machine,
Yeah,
right? Where
yeah,
you have the machines that you can run as a web
Exactly.
client.
Thin client.
A thin client. It was. I mean, it was like a lot of stuff that Sun did. It was ahead of time, probably.
Everything, and it looked beautiful. I wanted to have everything, but the problem with Sun is why they. I wanted to buy Sun machines.
Yeah.
But you couldn't if you were in Germany. So I went to them. I there was like the tower, and I went to Sun, and I did workshops for Sun Microsystems from time to time. I was the freelancing trainer, right? And I say I would like to buy the machine. And I say, okay, let's see what you are. You're working for us. Maybe you can buy it. I didn't want to do discount, nothing. And then it went back and forth, and it says impossible. It's like, yeah, I mean, you have to. You're saying it's hardware. How you can tell me it's impossible? I mean, I'm working for you. I will buy everything. No, it's impossible. And then at the OOP conference, for unknown reasons, there was also part of the Sun booth, and they had Intel machines, which also look beautiful. No, the chassis, and there was easier to buy them, but also strangely, so not directly, somehow indirectly. And the last story about that. So this was a GDK 1.1 time. There was IDE. It was Sun Java Studio Workshop and Sun's Java Studio Creator. And I wanted to have the IDEs. They costed 200 Deutschmarks, so roughly 100 euro. So, and I got a beautiful book. So I said, okay, I wanted to buy it. So I went to the website. So I got first a book. I think the book was more expensive than the two IDEs because it was beautiful. There are all the machines. It's a catalog of all the machines, beautifully printed. And it smelled nicely. So it was really like you would buy it right now, right? So, and then I ordered the two IDEs and nothing happens. And then I get a call. And they interviewed me, and I said, "This is really strange." I mean, and then afterwards, I became enterprise reseller or whatever, and I got a credit, so I could, in theory, buy the Sun E10K, with 400,000 euros. Yeah, but I actually at the end, the only thing I bought were the IDEs. And then I got the IDEs and I got the books for years. So I think 10 years after, I still had all the books with all the beautiful machines. And this was Sun. I think they went bankrupt because it was hard to buy anything from them. So this sounds funny, but this was really true. And I really wanted to, and it was. And I saw in the books they had, I think even they had a notebook or something similar. I said, this is cool. I really would like to have it. And I assembled my own servers, but only because I couldn't couldn't buy Sun
You couldn't
machines.
buy the Sun machine.
Yeah. So I tried to replicate that. So maybe, it was like in your case, you couldn't buy, the hardware in US. For me, it was the same. And I worked actually for Sun Germany. So I would say if you are not, I think it worked something differently. So you had to be a big company, to order the service. There was no plan or no strategy to sell it directly, or something like this. This was the problem. But funny for me, actually. Okay, so now even more stories, funny stories, but still like Sun. It really fascinated me, the entire company. It was, I don't know why. Everything was right, the Duke, the design, the colors, the website, the coffee. So this was like the perfect storm.
Yeah, totally agree. So it was one of these things where I told you I love Apple.
Not
also
that
because
Sun.
of the design stuff, but the Sun things, it was combined with technology, right?
Yeah.
They had this new things nobody else had, and you saw it and was like, wow, look at it. And they always nice presented, and the packaging was right, and like you said, the colors and everything. It's like, wow, I would like to have it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
so you started with JDK 1.4. So what you coded from 5 to 8?
So this is usually tools for engineers. So we had, it was e-beam lithography tools. It's normal people don't know that. So it's stuff where you write chips with it. Okay. So to make it very easy. So, but this was for prototyping. So for example, TSMC was a customer, Intel, Infineon, all these companies, AMD, they all have these machines, and not for production, but for figuring out the next technology.
Okay.
This is what the tools have been for. And that was, for me, that was perfect. I was at TSMC in Taiwan. I don't know how often I saw Intel, I saw Infineon in all the fabs. I was in the clean rooms and seeing how the stuff is produced, knowing how it works, and doing coding. It's, for me, that was the perfect thing to do. So, and we had engineers going to all the companies and doing the installation of the hardware. And then also I did installation and training. And for this kind of things, we needed tools for several things. And I started writing tools in Java because then I know people can use it on Mac, on Windows, wherever. Mm-hmm. And we had customers, especially in the US. Lots of universities have these tools. And we have customers had customers in the US, and the universities run completely on Apple. So we came with a Windows machine, and they said, we might make an exception to add your machine to the park. But can you give us some tools that we can prepare stuff for your software? Because we all work on Mac. So I was like, if I use Java, no problem, right? Mm-hmm. They can just run the stuff, and wherever they can run it on Windows, Mac, or Linux, it's no problem. So that was one of the reasons why I wrote a lot of tools for engineers, not really big applications. It's mainly smaller tools that I wrote. And that was mainly in this... very technology, or let's say, it's very physical stuff. So it in physics for electron beam lithography things. So it's not really something that I could explain here.
With user interface, or was it CLI?
Yeah, it was often with user interfaces.
Swing.
That was Swing at that time. Yeah, I did a lot of Swing. And I remember how I started coding graphical stuff because, I did a lot of JavaFX and also Swing work. And people sometimes ask me, so how comes you did this? Or why do you do this, all this graphics? And for me, it was, there was one key point in time where we needed a gauge, like a temperature gauge, right? To visualize the temperature in one of our tools. So I went to my former boss and said, look, I would like to do this, and there's a library I can buy. I can't remember the price. Let's say it was 1,000 German marks. And that has all these components, so I can use them and visualize stuff. And he was like, what is this? 1,000 German marks? That's too much. I was like, oh, okay. So I was, and then I came to this Apollo 13 thing where I watched the movie, saw the computer, and was like, can I do that in Swing? I never thought about it, doing it on my own, because I thought I'm a total loser with design because I can't draw with the hand, right? So, and then I started, okay, let's try it. So I tried to convert the picture with functionality into code. And that worked out from the beginning. I was like, that's pretty easy. It's not really hard to do that. So I went more and more into, can I do this stuff? For me, it's always a challenge. All the stuff that I do, all the libraries, it's not really that I use them. For me, it's more, can I do it?
Yeah.
What's the challenge here? And
Almost
try-
math. Yeah. One mathematician told me he only would like to know that it's possible. Then he stops.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
for me, it's really like it's like my personal challenge,
Mm-hmm.
and I always till now I always was able to manage to get it done, and it's fascinating for me to see stuff, and then can I do that in graphics, and how is the way, how can I implement it, and so that's how it started. So I just created the first gauge, used it, I published it on our user group blog, right? So and then Andres Almire, you probably know him, he saw that. And then he pinged me and said, "Oh, you should do more about this stuff." I was like, "Oh, okay, if you say so." And then, what's his last name? David from. There's this very famous charts library for Swing. Can't remember but everybody uses that. JFree chart.
Jeffrey Chat.
Yes, and the guy saw it and he was like, "Oh, can I add it to JFree chart?" And I was like, "My component." Oh. I was totally shocked. I was like, yes, sure, you can. He gave me some hints, like you have to make it scalable. And I was like, good idea. So I figured out how to make components
Which
scalable.
year was it?
Long time ago.
2006, 7?
Yeah, something around that time, maybe.
Okay.
So, and I started looking into that. And then the interesting part was I came out with this library. It's called SteelSeries. And then that was a little bit later. I think that maybe was around 2011. And then that was also the first time I went to Java 1, because I never did that. I mean, San Francisco, I didn't have the money to go there, and the company wouldn't support me. So
one short interruption, because you said, you always, until now, you were always able to prove that you can achieve something, right? This. So what I suspect is you are continuing this because you are afraid. So if you stop one time, it will stop, right? you have to complete the challenge, right? Because similar attitude with bugs finding, if something like this is impossible, it has to work, but it doesn't, right? But I have to find it out, because if I stop, I become lazy, and the next time,
there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe it is something like that. So I need that as some kind of a motivation to keep going and to learn new stuff, because it's interesting that if you can manage to do that, to realize it from the idea to the implementation, then you can show it to others and people say, "Oh, I didn't know that this is possible." So, yeah, I also didn't know, but it is possible. You can do it. You have just to figure out how to do it. Yeah, so that was...
and also, one thing on that note is, for me, right, if there is an error, and this is a computer, so it is usually my fault, right? So there should be a solution to the problem. And if you know that it's that crystal clear, and so, okay, it's my fault, so I will find the problem, right? But if you give up, it waters down, and then you just give up. You say, maybe, the chip is broken, or there was some, there was some fluctuation of frequencies or whatever, or dark forces or whatever, right? And then you just, okay, I don't care. So this is important that exactly, this is on me, and we can solve it or not. But in computers, this is usually is always your fault, right? It is,
And that means if you say I can't fix it, then you are not smart enough.
Yeah, or not persistent. Persistent, not even smart. I would say you only have to be consistent and persistent.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
It's just keep on going and try to figure out the problem and solve it.
So SteelSeries, I remember, because I like Swing a lot, and I didn't like SWT because it was unnecessary technology for me. Yeah, really, because I was like, Java is there, why you should use Eclipse? I mean, we could do this, but always is like Kotlin right now. It is maybe a bit nicer, but there's nothing to install. Just pick Java and it runs. So this was always my attitude. And I think SteelSeries, I remember, because you had a blog, or still have, and you had screenshots, and they always look beautiful. So it was like proof, IntelliJ and your stuff, and so okay, it can look great. And of course, the remember the how it was called, complete GUI makeover, the Java 1 session.
The Extreme GUI makeover.
Extreme GUI makeover by now the Android guy. It was the French guy, I forgot his name, and Chet Chase, I think, was the one guy, the Swing guy, and they did also beautiful things, and the entire session was a show, more or less.
Yeah,
and was also one of my reference points. Is okay, Swing can actually look great. So,
Oh, absolutely. So I also did one of the years. I also did the Extreme GUI makeover, and it's
then I saw you for sure because I didn't never miss the Java 1 and always
yeah,
attended the session.
it was just fun to show. It was like you said, it was a showcase, right? You just show people, look,
What
you
was it
can
with
do.
Anton Apple back then?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I remember.
it was a media player, but it was not about the functionality. It was what you can do if you know how to do it. And we just took, I think it was a designer screenshot that someone designed that, and we said, can we implement that in JavaFX and make it work from the screenshot, make it really work as an application? And we did that. And it took some time, but it's fascinating if you have this kind of challenges then, and you can prove that it works. Then you can also spark the interest in people, because then you can show it to them. See, look, this is possible. So it's not like Java is ugly or something. It doesn't have to be. It's up to you. You can make it work. And I did that for a long time, doing all these things. I mean, I stopped that when I moved to Azul, which is because I did that for 10 years. And to be honest, JavaFX is not evolving that much anymore.
So one question. So I just wanted to hear the entire story because I have the feeling, or I will re-invite you back to talk about Azul for sure, because this is also now my interest. What interests me right now is, you know what, you was your first Java 1 in San Francisco, right? So you were the first time in San Francisco, and you presented your gauge component, or
it was I think the session was about wait, let me think about, maybe I can get even back the title. It was designed by keyboard, something like that.
Okay.
Because I saw that in my own team in the former company, that the product management came with some ideas what they would like to have in the software for their customers. So they came to the software development department, went to the developer, and the guy made a drawing on a piece of paper, like, I need this. It was a circle, and there was a pointer, and he said, it needs to be a temperature gauge. So he just put it on on the desk to the developer. So, and that was exactly what he got. He got a circle, he got a line, and there was 0, 100, and then that's it. So, and I showed that. I was like, this happened in the company I was working for. And then I showed them how it could look like. That was one of my gauges. And people was like, wow. I said, oh, this is not hard. It's easy if you know how to do it. And then I went through the process of how you can implement from an image, a photo or whatever, to the code, how you can transform that stuff from photo to code. And that was... I was surprised that nobody never ever did that before. So because I remember when I got accepted to Java 1, the track lead wrote me a mail and said, finally, you proposed something. We're waiting for that for years that you finally I was like, yeah, it's not easy to get to San Francisco, right? Someone has to pay for it. And Canoe at that time, they
exactly.
And then they said, we pay you the flight and the hotel, just go there and talk about it. And then that was how it started. And then I saw the year after, I saw at all of the conference, I saw the people using my gauges everywhere. I was like, wow, this is really cool. I never thought that people use that, because it was not made for production. I'm not a professional library designer or something. I just did it to show if I can do it. And I created these libraries and I put it out and I said, don't use it in production. I didn't even write test for it. It's really just a showcase. But companies use it. So I was totally surprised when I saw it in the catalog of an electronic company and I saw some software. I was like, oh, this is the stuff that I wrote. So they use it. I never know who's using this stuff.
Was it on GitHub or somewhere?
It is on GitHub. Yeah, it still is. So I didn't.
What's the name? SteelSeries.
SteelSeries. Yeah, it's quite old. I'm not sure if this is. In the beginning, it wasn't on GitHub, and then at some point, I put it there and left it there. So yeah, but it's still used. So I got a request, I think, a couple of weeks back, where someone said, I know it's old, but we use it here. Can you fix that one? I said, sorry, no, I can't. I'm totally out of the swing stuff. So I have no idea.
It was maybe on Kenai on Mercurial before.
Yeah, right. It was on Kenai. That's correct. I had it there.
Also a really great name, great, logos, great stickers from Sun.
Yeah.
I had everything on Kenai until it died. So I was a little bit sad. And then I migrated everything to GitHub. But the name Kenai, this was like, everything was right.
And there was another one from Atlassian. There was also, what was the name of it? Source, no, not Source.
SourceForge.
No, I can't remember. There was something else. I had also hosted code there for some time, and then I moved to GitHub.
Bitbucket, you mean?
Bitbucket, that was
Yeah,
the
but it's
one.
still around, is it not?
Yeah, they are still, but I moved from Bitbucket to GitHub. So I have still a lot of stuff is in Bitbucket.
The Project Kenai, they pinged me because a lot of project from them, and yeah. And on funny note, so I had a lot of stuff on Mercurial on Git.
Yeah.
And then it was like 10 years ago, and I did all my examples in on Git, and I got on Amazon really bad review. So I'm a crazy. I'm pushing to Git, and this is esoteric. Why I'm not using SVN or C? But what's funny right now? You should rewatch the comments. And I say, okay, this is actually it was the worst review I ever got. And another thing was, I was once in the not chair, how to call it, program committee for JAX.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why. Someone asked me something, and I just wanted to make fun. And I say, I have no idea, because I never wrote actually any code. So I'm just here for fun. And they believe me. But then the Sebastian is the organizer of JAX. Got an email and said they should immediately make cancel my commitment to the conference, because they know for sure I'm not able to code anything. It's just I'm complete fake. And and he showed me this, and I saw how it happened. It's like, I know, I made a joke, so be careful what you are saying. But they were really angry with me, and Sebastian just was laughing, right? But he knew that I can code at least hello world, and and this was actually fun, right? So this was also some story. So the podcast listeners may wonder, we both attend similar conferences, but we actually never had time to talk to each other deeply. So I only knew that you do something with JavaFX, and I knew your SteelSeries, but I had no idea what you actually did, right? So this was the thing. We met in every conference, actually. Always say hello, and then, exactly. So what happens after this Java one? So what is the next one, or what you did then?
Oh, that was literally the start of me going to conferences talking about technology, because I never did that before. And then I also realized that I really like it, to talking to people and show them stuff that you can do, or whatever it is about technology, just presenting things. Let me think about it, because then I moved to Canoe, which was a really great company with awesome people.
It still is, or is it still?
No,
around?
Canoe is not existing anymore.
Oh.
Canoe is there is, if you now look up Canoe, because another company bought that brand, and now Canoe Engineering is a company in the US, and they create cars for SpaceX, I think.
Wow.
It's really fascinating. Yeah, so
Okay.
there's a story behind how Canoe became Karakun. This is in principle, it's the same people more or less, and then it became Karakun. But Canoe was very special to me, because there have been so many great people like Andres and Ixchel. There's Dirk König, Omiki.
Exactly.
He's just awesome. And other people that are not very well known in the community, but they are really great. So I really love that company, and they made a lot of stuff possible for me. And without them, I wouldn't be part of the community like I'm now. So I started going to conferences, talk about stuff. And then I realized that not a lot of people do graphics with Java. That was maybe to my benefit, because it was easy to get some kind of name in the community for doing graphics, because nobody did it, right? So there haven't been any libraries and stuff. So for a long time, I was the only one really pushing and talking about JavaFX. But I stopped doing that, because I like it. I love the API. This is, for me, one of the really best graphics APIs if you do applications, because they really thought about how you can do things in the right way. And I tried different things. I coded for Android. I do Swift. I do stuff for Garmin devices and for all kinds of things. So I love to code. And
what is Garmin actually? Is it C, or what API do you have?
It's called Monkey C. Okay. Which is, and they say it's a mixture between Java, JavaScript, Python, and C.
Oh, this is the great possible choice.
Strange.
So if someone asks me what's my opinion about the language, it's like, I have no idea. They do Monkey C.
Yeah, exactly. So
you will learn everything. Yeah, exactly.
It's very, for me, it was another challenge. So I once bought a Garmin watch, and then I thought, how can I write a watch face for that. And I saw, oh, they have an API, oh, they have a language, let's try it. And it was again about graphical stuff, how they do it. And once you see all these different ways of doing graphics in different languages, I think I can judge that JavaFX is quite good in getting started and getting things done easily. That's great. It gets complex if you would like to do more complex things. Then it's not that easy anymore, and you don't find a lot of documentation how to do that. But this is with the others, it's the same. So if you go with Swift, for example,
exactly, Swift UI is even worse, I guess, right? Because
it's a totally different approach, very restrictive. So they force you to use a model separate from the UI, which is a good thing. But if you're used to mix up things because it's easier, sometimes you can't. So you really have to think differently. And I think with what's the other one from Kotlin now? Compose, I think, is the framework.
For Android, right? The reactive.
Yeah, this is a very similar approach to Swift UI. And it's once you're used to it, it's nice, kind of. But I still like the way that I can use in JavaFX. I have so many possibilities.
By the way, I also had a contribution to JavaFX. I almost forgot about that. So I observed, how I build enterprise apps. So I never even tried to do something,
I remember that one.
This was the afterburner with the dependency injection.
Yeah.
and this blew up, actually. People wanted, to clone it or whatever. And I said, yeah, come on, is this what I'm doing all the time on the server? Now it's a mass hysteria with about 3 classes. And I tried to keep it lean. It were like 5 classes, and it worked surprisingly well. So I was very productive with it.
People still use it. I was in touch with someone this year, and I can't remember when it was, and they say, "Oh yeah, we use that." I said, "Oh, okay, cool."
Cool. This is remarkable because this was like dependency injection, separation of the generated code from the Okay, which so you are aware of it. Afterburner was the name.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I saw that in lots of projects when I worked for Canoe and Karakun. People use that a lot, so it's interesting.
So it's cool because you did, you had your gauge moment. I created dependency injection, and it was, was really surprised that everyone likes that because for me it was
because you solved a problem in an easy way, right? And then that's what people like, right? And then of course you're known, so if you talk about it, then people will probably try it, and then they see, oh, it works, it's great, so then they use it. But it's interesting. I did, for example, I also implemented the properties from JavaFX. They're a little bit overloaded for me.
They're reactive ones, right?
So I created a copy of that, so I just did the same. You can even exchange them. I don't have they have this, what is it, the natural language API where you can
the DSL, right?
Yes, I don't have this one. And so it's a little bit smaller, but I can use that on the server side because I really like that approach that I can just create properties, have listeners and event system. I also created a copy of the Java.
Was it a part of the Dolphin, which Canoe created?
No. I just did that on my own. I have a library which is called, I think, Toolbox, and that contains the event system and the properties, which is more or less the same that is in JavaFX, but not that big. So it's smaller, and I can use it on the server side. And it has bidirectional binding and unidirectional binding. So if I need to do stuff like that, then sometimes that's quite useful. So and that's probably me. I don't like dependencies in general. I really like, because I see all these frameworks and they come with all these things. I think this is not needed. You don't need all these stuff. Mostly you need some tiny things. And then if you have that, you can... That's all you need, right? Like you did with Afterburner. This is very much the same. You just figured out, I just need 3 or 5 classes to do this kind of things. So I don't need a huge framework just to get this tiny part out of it. So, and that I see it the same way.
Classic way, the classic of a few weeks ago, I performed a code review, and this was like to have a list modifiable. They used Google Collections or whatever, instead list copy of, I look, this is list copy of, and I think that's exactly the same way they did it. And it's interesting because maybe what happens is they find this solution and then they Stack Overflow maybe, right? And say, okay, this library is required, and they pull the library. And for me, I never do this because in order to add a library, I will have to understand how it works. I'm always afraid, if I pull this library, it will interfere with another library, and then I spend, the entire night debugging. So I'm too lazy. So just, use Java and go, right?
For me, it's also a security thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So right now,
dependencies where you don't know this stuff. You just need one class out of this huge collection, and then, but Is it vulnerable? I have no idea. And sometimes, or most of the times, you don't really need the whole stuff. You just need one or two
Yeah,
classes.
exactly.
And then you take a look at Java and see, oh, this is 2 lines of code. So I can do that on my own. So I don't really need this
Java is
library.
extremely powerful, by the way. So if
It is.
we should spend more time in Javadoc. It's incredible what's inside, right?
Yeah. And this is maybe one of the problems, that people getting lazy, and we have so many things out there, which is great on one side, because if you need something, you will probably find it in the Java environment. But on the other hand, that leads to the fact that people implement or use dependencies just because they need this one functionality, and they don't even look at Java, right? They don't even try to, oh, it's easy. It's already in the API maybe, right? So you just don't know, and then you use this dependency. And I think if people would spend more time in reading Javadoc and trying to figure out how to do it in Java itself, we could get way smaller applications and less problems with transitive dependencies.
Yeah. This is why I always like the application service in Java EE, because you download the thing and you could start working. And Java 1, I also attended some sessions that always talk about best of breed. This is application servers are bad because you download it once and they would like to compose everything. And I say, I don't like it. I don't like before the project to think what is the best library of the day and compose it, because the next day could be different, right? And and the probability that everything will die after 5 years is very high. But if you use something which everyone uses, is boring. This is back to cars. If you would pick in Germany Volkswagen, and everything is based on Volkswagen, the Audi and whatever, Seat, everything is the same. But if you pick an esoteric car that it breaks, you don't find the parts, the chances are higher that you get in trouble. So what happened then? So you do the Garmin stuff and you do the other stuff. And
I also did some pathway through JavaScript. So that was probably around 2013, 14, when HTML5 came out with Canvas. So I was like, wow, this is I can do stuff in the browser. This is cool. So I ported parts of this SteelSeries library to JavaScript.
Wow.
And it's still available, and it's widely used. I also didn't know that. So because it's more or less the same. And for me, it was the challenge, can I do the same that I did in Swing? Can I do that in JavaScript? And so I started creating this library, and it still works. And it's plain JavaScript.
Exactly.
And so this is what I like. If I saw all these frameworks coming and going, right? So it's jQuery. I don't know what it all is. So for me, it's just too much. They always save the same problem over and over again, instead of using just what they have.
Exactly.
So I can use my plain JavaScript library, and it still works everywhere, because HTML5 now is the standard.
Yeah.
So you can use Canvas everywhere. And browsers got way better. In the beginning, it was not that fast, but now it works on the Wii U, it works on the Switch, on my phone, everywhere where I have a browser, I can use it. And what happened is that there's a guy somewhere in the UK, and he's working on a software where they visualize weather stations.
Okay.
And he pinged me and said, "Oh, you have this library? Can I use that?" So sure, just use it. And this is used everywhere because his framework is used everywhere. And so he started also contributing and maintaining it. And so it became very popular on this weather station software for browsers, right? If there's a city, they have a weather station, so they have a website.
Wow.
Then I saw my library there. I said, oh, again, the same effect that I got with Swing. But then I stopped doing JavaScript because of JavaScript.
What's the name of the library? SteelSeries?
SteelSeries, yeah. SteelSeries JS is the name. And it probably is not the correct way of implementing it. I'm not a JavaScript programmer, but it works.
Yeah.
So and it was used. So I think even Mitti Dirk König, who's a professor now at the university in Switzerland, he uses that as an example in his lectures. So because this is plain JavaScript, there's no frameworks involved. And that was. In the beginning, I was fascinated by doing that because I can run stuff in the browser. Wow, awesome. Now I'm not a total big fan of browser stuff. If I see I have to start the browser, which is a desktop application, to run an application in the browser that looks like a desktop application, then I ask myself, why? What's the reason? Why should I do that? It doesn't make sense to me. But okay, if this is the way it goes, then people should enjoy all their new frameworks every 3 weeks. I don't need that. So I use JavaScript for It is sometimes nice. So I use some npm stuff on my server because it's easier, for example, to pass a MQTT message or an HTTP request to an MQTT message, and then through my browser to my broker, I can just get the messages everywhere. So it's a couple of lines of code in JavaScript, which is nice for this kind of stuff. For scripting, I like it. For doing applications, I don't really like it.
Okay.
And also don't like all the stuff around it. So there's this TypeScript, which is for me like Java, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't see the reason why should I do that. So what's the point? Why should I do TypeScript just to get JavaScript that works?
This is not the worst. The interesting part is, I remember as JavaScript became more and more popular, on all conferences, the arguments were they use JavaScript because more flexible, and Java is type safe, and everyone is limited because everyone has to fight with the types, and the productivity comes with. Like in Ruby and JavaScript, obviously, you can write fast code because you are not, you
don't have to think about typing.
Yeah, don't have to, and the compiler doesn't fight against you, and you ensure the type safety with unit tests. This was the argumentation for a long time, and then really surprised me that TypeScript is type safe. And I say, okay, now what they are doing now, because we had this 10 years Java, so why now? The opposite is true, but no one argumented anymore. So they say, but what happened there this summer? More and more companies are going away from TypeScript because it is too hard, to deploy the libraries or to deploy the libraries. Like the Ruby guys switch back to plain JavaScript, which I understand because but TypeScript was for me always. And what I don't like is the entire build process in between, I mean, if it already runs in a browser, why we need to build it again? I mean, this is crazy, but...
Yeah, so for me, the same. Maybe we are too old.
No, you should look what I'm doing. Go to my GitHub and search for BCE design. It is like Afterburner for JavaScript. It's just plain JavaScript with web components, and you can build UIs without anything. It will be absolutely compatible with your SteelSeries.
Yeah, which is great, because this is...
Nothing. It's just,
And it goes back to the stuff that you said before, right? Instead of looking for other language, just first of all, learn the stuff that you have and use it.
Exactly.
And then,
more vacations. So, so what happens? Then you joined Azul, or was it something in between?
I was also at Oracle in between. So I was fascinated by Sun, right? This is we share that fascination. So I was at the Sun Tech Days in Frankfurt, in Germany.
Yes.
And I saw Simon Ritter and other people there, and I was like, wow, this is so cool what they do with that. There was Sunspots, right? This tiny device.
Still have device. Them. Yeah.
Again, ahead of time.
Yeah.
Way ahead of time.
Yeah.
That was IoT already.
Yes.
And so I saw that and I was like, wow. I was blown away by that. So I ordered in the Sun merchandising store on the web, I ordered Sunspots for 600 German marks at that time, just to have them, and started coding with this because I was fascinated in doing that. And I used that. And then because of all this speaking at conferences, I remember that at Devox in Belgium, Simon came to me at one Devox and said, we should talk. So would you like to work for me? I was like, yes, I would love to work for you. So then I became a Java evangelist at Oracle. Unfortunately, all this went down the drain because of management changing. And then they figured out years later that, it wasn't a good idea to get rid of all the evangelists. Now we have, again, the DevRel people, right, which is the same. That was good times. And Simon moved to Azul when he left Oracle. I went to Karakun, or to Kanhu at that time, and then it became Karakun. So I did consultancy projects in countries. Sometimes I was in Singapore for some time on a project, but this whole project work wasn't really for me. So I don't know. Maybe this is because I came from that semiconductor world where we have been working on a product. So that means you have a product and
huge difference.
You go to the customer, you install it, you get the feedback, you take the feedback, you implement new stuff based on that feedback. You go the next time, people are like, wow, this is cool. So you can improve and improve over time. I really like that a lot. And you know your stuff really well. When I got to the project world, it's like, it's short periods of time where you work in a project. You're not allowed to share the code. You can't show, or sometimes not allowed to talk about it. So you leave the project, everything's gone. You start something new.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, some kind, you either this kind or that kind, because people, I know a lot of people, they like that. Oh, I can always have new environments, new technologies. This is great. I was like, no, I'm not interested in all this new stuff. I would like to go deeper and improve.
So I'm a hybrid. I'm doing project with old technology. This is this works great.
Nice. Yeah, so this is how, and then I got the chance to work for Azul, and I was like, oh, this is so good, because Simon is a really good friend of mine, and now we work together again. And there's Gertjan that I know him for, I don't know, 12 years. Pratik I know for years. So it's people it's just good. It's a good environment to work with friends, right? So this is that's how it came. And then I stopped doing JavaFX on conferences because there was nothing really new anymore.
Okay.
I still love it, as I'm. Before we had the call, I'm still working on some JavaFX stuff.
JDK Monitor, I saw it, right?
Yeah. So it's really interesting.
On that note, I will invite you back, and because I also like Azul for different reasons. I actually followed the company for a long time, and I was a little bit sad about the direction. No, not now, like 10 years ago, because they had something which they don't have anymore, just like a cliffhanger, and I was really fascinated by that, called Vega. And I would like to talk with you about Java, Azul, and Azul technologies and Crack, and just this what we are actually doing the next time. So it will be
sure.
Today was fun. The next time is work.
It was a lot of fun.
So
it's this is interesting. It's always great to talk to people that have the same age and did go through the same.
Yeah, but I mean, we are in the 20s. Still, you won't find so many people in our age.
No comment.
No comment. Java keeps us young. We have all the Back to the Future and everything experience. So this is why exactly. It's just decorator pattern where I look sometimes different, right? So like aliens. Where people can find you on the internet?
On the internet, I'm mainly on Twitter still, so I will stick there around as long as it goes. So it's Hansolo _, and this is really the only platform that I'm using.
Blue Sky as well, right?
I have Blue Sky and Mastodon. Blue Sky is coming, so I really like it. It feels like Twitter was in the beginning. I still miss some things like hashtags. That would be great to have that. And direct messages.
But more and more Java communities meeting there, so the communities get nicer and nicer in Blue Sky.
It gets better and better, so I really like that. And there is no all this crap that we have on Twitter, but Twitter still. I mean, I have a lot of people there.
Yeah.
And it's just a great way.
What's your handle on Twitter?
Hansolo _.
Exactly. And perfect. So see you next time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.